Բարի երեկո սիրելի բարեկամներ։ Այս գիշեր մեր հարցն է Լոս Անջելես քաղաքի հարցերը, որտեղ մենք որպես հայություն բավական բնակներ ունենք այս քաղաքի մեջ։ Եվ այսօրվա իմ հյուրս է բարոն Փոլ Կրեկորյանը, որ City Council-ի անդամ է եւ հետը պիտի զրուցենք քաղաքին հարցերու մասին եւ հատկապես հայության մասին։
Հաղորդման հովանավոր Dignity Health Glendale Memorial Hospital։ Փոլ Կրեկորյան, Լոս Անջելեսի քաղաքային խորհրդի անդամ, 2010 թվականից ի վեր Լոս Անջելեսի քաղխորհրդի կազմում զբաղեցնում է բյուջեի եւ ֆինանսների կոմիտեի նախագահի պաշտոնը։ Ներկայումս ղեկավարում է նաեւ աշխատատեղերի ստեղծման կոմիտեն, ժամանցային վայրերի կոմիտեի փոխնախագահն է, անդամակցում է տնտեսական զարգացման, առևտրի եւ տեխնոլոգիաների եւ մի շարք այլ քաղաքային կոմիտեներին։ Փոլ Կրեկորյանը նաեւ Լոս Անջելես քաունթիի տրանսպորտային մետրոպոլիտեն վերահսկիչ մարմնի անդամ է։ Փոլ Կրեկորյանը ավարտել է USC համալսարանի քաղաքական գիտությունների եւ UC Berkeley համալսարանի իրավաբանական բաժինները։ Բրբանկի կրթական խորհրդի կազմում 3 տարի գործելուց հետո 2006 թվականին Փոլ Կրեկորյանը հաղթանակեց Կալիֆոռնիայի նահանգային խորհրդի ընտրություններում։ Սակրամենտոյում նրա գործունեությունը ներառում էր մի շարք կարևորագույն պարտականություններ, ինչպիսիք էին օրենսդրական էթիկայի կոմիտեի համանախագահի պաշտոնում պետական գործընթացների թափանցիկության ապահովումը, նահանգում հեռուստատեսության եւ կինոարտադրության ոլորտի հարկառման առաջին հաջողված ծրագրի մշակումը եւ այլն։ Փոլ Կրեկորյանը Լոս Անջելեսի քաղխորհրդի աշխատակազմում ընտրված առաջին ամերիկահայ պաշտոնյան է։ Ավելի քան 100 տարի առաջ Միացյալ Նահանգներ գաղթած նրա ընտանիքի համար հարազատ դարձած Լոս Անջելեսի ղեկավար մարմիններում պաշտոնավարելը մեծ հպարտություն եւ միաժամանակ հսկայական պատասխանատվություն էր Փոլի համար։ Թե քաղաքային եւ թե նահանգային խորհրդի կազմում իր լայնածավալ աշխատանքին զուգընթաց Փոլ Կրեկորյանն իր պաշտոնավարման բոլոր փուլերում մշտապես սատար է կանգնել Լոս Անջելեսահայ համայնքին, ինչպես նաեւ ժերաջանորեն մասնակցել է ազգային կարեւորություն ունեցող բոլոր գործընթացներին։
Սիրելի բարեկամներ, այսօրվա իմ հյուրս է բարոն Փոլ Կրեկորյանը, City Council, Los Angeles քաղաքի, իր հետը պիտի զրուցենք անգլերենով բարոն Կրեկորյանին հետ։ So, Mr. Krekorian, welcome to my show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. A little bit background about yourself. Just, everybody knows who Phol Krekorian is. I've known him for many years. But just for our audience, a little bit about background about yourself.
Well, I'm the descendant of immigrants who came from Harpert and immigrated to this country in the late part of the 19th century, in the 1890s. They came to Worcester, Massachusetts, and then made their way to Fresno, and my family's been in Los Angeles now for over 100 years. My dad was a hardworking man, had a small business in Van Nuys, served our country in the United States Marine Corps, and raised me to be somebody who really wanted to serve my country as well. And so I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, went to USC, and then went to law school at Berkeley and had a successful law career for about 20 years. And then decided later in life that I was going to take the plunge and go into public service, and that's when I first ran for office. I ran for the state assembly in 2000, and although that was not a successful election for me, it was a very successful campaign for our community, because that was really one of the first big steps forward for Armenian engagement and empowerment in the American political system. A few years later, I was elected to the Burbank School Board, first Armenian American ever elected in Burbank. And after serving there for 3 years, I was elected to the California State Assembly. And after serving in the Assembly for 4 years, I became the council member for the 2nd Council District in Los Angeles and the first Armenian American ever elected to the Los Angeles City Council.
Most Armenians in general, they stay away from politics. I mean, they want to go into business, a profession. What drove you? I mean, you were a very successful career you had as an attorney. I mean, you could have made a lot of money, so to speak, but you chose public service to serve our community. Was your desire to be a public servant?
So even from an early age, I had in mind that I wanted to serve the community, serve my country in some way. even as a fairly young child. I didn't know exactly what that would be. As I mentioned, my dad was a Marine. He suggested that I not follow in those footsteps because he saw combat in World War II and didn't want me to serve in the military. So I had to find other ways that I would serve. And from an early age, I was drawn towards government, drawn towards doing this. And it became especially important for me a little bit later. I got married to my beautiful wife, Tamar. I became concerned about the future of public education and other issues that would affect our kids. And at the same time, I saw this dramatic growth that we'd had in the Armenian American community. Tremendous, since the late 70s onward, tremendous growth in the population with essentially no real representation. And so the issues that were affecting our community, as well as the issues that affected my family and all of us collectively as you know, members of American society, the issues that affected our community, our Armenian American community, were just not really being addressed. And so that created even more of an imperative to me to jump into the arena and be the representative of our community and fulfill my desire to serve the country as well.
How big is the Armenian population in your district?
Well, those numbers are always difficult to quantify because we don't have clear information from the census on Armenian Americans. But my district is one of the 2 or 3 largest Armenian populations in the city because I have North Hollywood. When I was first elected, I also had the Armenian American community of Sunland Dahunga. Right. Redistricting has changed that. But it's a significant part of the district, certainly not the majority or anywhere close to it, but it is a fairly significant concentration, especially in the North Hollywood area of the valley.
I mean, I almost feel like you're my councilman, even though I'm not in your district. I live in Glendale, but you know, knowing you, I mean, you're just such a great public servant. You know, serve all of us, all Armenian Americans within the LA, proper, basically.
Well, you're kind to say so, and I consider it my duty. I think most of us who are Armenian American elected officials in any capacity feel that same sense of duty to the community because we are a people that have gone without representation for so long. Right. And here in this country, we have that opportunity. We have the opportunity to participate in the government in ways that in many other places in the diaspora we would not have that opportunity. So I think those of us who are given this great privilege of being able to serve in elected office feel very much that duty to serve the entire Armenian American community.
I mean, we have a governor, or we had a governor who was an Armenian American. Would we see Paul Krekorian running for statewide office at some time in your future? Well, or maybe a mayor? I mean, should I ask that question?
I try to stay focused on my current job and do the best I can, and I think the rest takes care of itself. Certainly, I'm not done with my public service anytime soon, and I would certainly welcome the opportunity to serve in another kind of office if that opportunity presented itself, whether citywide, within the county, in Washington, or otherwise.
Okay. Now, I'd like to change focus a little bit and talk about the issues related to our city. We're the second largest city, but we have issues. You know, homelessness is an issue. Safety, crime, housing shortages. I mean, there's severe. It's one of the most expensive cities. Next to New York and San Francisco. What is the city is doing about it? What's the city council or the mayor taking any steps? Let's take it one at a time.
Sure.
Let's say housing is a severe issue. Most people cannot afford LA.
It is a very severe issue, and it affects all of us. It certainly affects young people who are graduating from college and trying to find an apartment, or trying to start a young family and have an opportunity for the American dream and buy a home. it certainly affects them. It makes that challenge seem virtually impossible for a single income couple like the family that I was raised in, who had that opportunity to buy an affordable house in a great neighborhood and build a future for their family. So it affects people who want to have that American dream, to be sure. But it affects us in so many other ways as well. Certainly the cost of housing has contributed greatly to our homelessness problem in Los Angeles. It actually interferes with our ability to attract new businesses to come here, because the ability to have affordable housing for your employees is an important factor that business people make in deciding where to site their business. So it touches just about everything that we care about. And Los Angeles has become one of the least affordable housing markets in the country, both because of the spike in price, but also because of the disparity between median rents and median income. So this is one of the most difficult problems we're grappling with right now. I've just been appointed vice chair of our housing committee in the council, so it'll be something I'm spending a considerable amount of my time on. I mean, the first solution is we need more housing. And we need
affordable housing.
We need more housing, and we need more
they can
affordable
build
housing.
I mean, I see all these condos and apartments in downtown, but they start like $3,000 a month just for one bedroom.
That's right.
You know, two bedroom, $4,000, $5,000. I mean, how could anyone afford that, especially young generation?
That's right. So one of the things we need to do is have more availability, especially around transit corridors, so people will be able to take advantage of that.
We're going to discuss that in just a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Sir Paragamer, Kash Tatarame Hede, Bidi Veratanak Mer Haydakrin. Սիրելի բարեկամներ, ինչպես մենք կխոսենք Տաթարեն առաջ Los Angeles քաղաքի մասին եւ արհյուրներ Baron Paul Krekorian, City Councilman Los Angeles քաղաքին. Paul, just before the break, we were talking about the affordability of the housing. I mean, I see all over the city houses or apartments being built, but they're very expensive. I mean, how could anyone, especially young generation, their 20s and 30s, afford these rents in the city, which are really not helping us as a city attracting businesses and hiring people.
And attracting the young people who will be the innovators, who will be creating the businesses and the industries of the future as well. You're absolutely right. So there's multiple components to this. One is the housing stock itself, and we clearly have a shortage of all housing. That's why you see so much construction going on now, because there's been pent-up demand. Investors realize that there's a market for new units, and so new units are being built. There needs to be more, and there needs to be more especially around our transit hubs, where we can afford to have more density without contributing greatly to congestion and some of the infrastructure challenges that come with more housing. So that's number one. Number two, we have to address that disparity between income and rental costs. That means lifting all boats. We have to do more to bring new business in. We have to do more to increase wages here in Los Angeles. And I have chaired for about 2 years now the council's ad hoc committee on jobs creation, and we've taken some very innovative steps towards trying to create new jobs. We've cut the unemployment rate in half in Los Angeles since the Great Recession. But we have to do more to attract the kinds of businesses that create the good, high-paying, middle-class jobs that will close that gap of affordability. And then the third thing is, we've already taken huge strides in investing in our transportation infrastructure. And that's so important because Los Angeles, over its history, has expanded horizontally.
Right.
And
I mean, you need a car in Los Angeles. I mean, you can't get around without a car.
But we are making great strides in making more of parts of the county more easily accessible by transit.
Right.
And as we do that, and as we develop housing and jobs along those transit corridors, we'll be able to increase the stock without creating gridlock and the other challenges that come. And so the passage of Measure M and the investments that we're making in the Metro Board to significantly increase the availability of transit, I think, is going to be helpful in that as well, because people can then afford to live in areas that are a little bit more distant from their jobs and still have a reasonable quality of life where they're not in their car for 2 hours to commute each way.
Homelessness is an issue in LA, and I know firsthand, being a healthcare person myself, it clogs our emergency rooms. These people show up constantly in our ERs. Either they need medicine or they need care. And even after you try to discharge them, where do you send them?
That's right.
Where do you send the patient who was your patient? There's no home to send it. Nursing home will not take them. Home health needs a home. I mean, it's a major issue, and it's a shame for our city and our country to have homelessness in today's age.
It really is. For the wealthiest country in the world, maybe the wealthiest country ever, to have this kind of nationwide crisis of homelessness is, it really is horrid, and it's inexcusable. And yet, this is the byproduct of probably 30 or 40 years of policy that have led to this problem. This is not something that just happened.
No, it's been around a long time, but it's been increased. I noticed
dramatically increased.
Dramatically jump in homelessness on the streets. And I read somewhere that because of increases in rent, average rents going up, more and more people are becoming homeless.
No question that the affordability issue that we just spoke of a moment ago is a major driver of this increase, but so is the continuing inexcusable neglect of mental health care and substance abuse over the last 30 or 40 years. We've neglected this and neglected it, and the fruits of that neglect are now being borne. And then, of course, on top of everything else, we had within the last decade the greatest collapse of the global economy that we've had since the Great Depression, which caused even people who were doing okay to suffer such financial setback that many of them who were on the lower end of the economic scale have slid off into homelessness now, and very difficult for them to get back out.
What would city do?
So,
to help? Would it be maybe, I'm on the board of Hospital Council, and we discussed a public-private partnership between the hospitals in the city and the city, if possible. I mean, it's just an idea that we discussed. Would the city open to that?
Oh, you bet. It's very important, and the hospitals will play a critical role, especially for those, as I mentioned, who are suffering from substance abuse or mental health conditions. One of the things that the city has initiated already through the Los Angeles Fire Department is a nurse practitioner program, so that instead of having firefighters with an ambulance and a fire engine respond every time there's an incident involving a homeless person who maybe is, acting out or something, we have a nurse practitioner respond in a much lower cost kind of environment.
And a physician, yes.
And they are better able to address the specific issues that that homeless person is presenting. So it's proven to be very effective both as a cost saver, but also in getting that individual connected to the actual services that they may need to break this cycle, instead of, as you pointed out, just taking them to the emergency room, letting some ER doctor have to deal with it, and then letting them out, which is a revolving door that solves nothing.
Exactly. It doesn't solve anything. I've been dealing with this for now almost 10 years. Just a constant revolving door of patients coming in and out of ERs. They needed their medicine, they did this, they did that, and we're stuck with these patients.
Right. So the nurse practitioner program is intended to address that revolving door, but the other component of that, and you touched upon it in your question, is we just have to have more permanent supportive housing, housing for the formerly homeless that will have services wrapped into it, so that people who are struggling to maintain stability in new housing are provided with the kind of mental health services, counseling, job training, and other services that they need to be able to sustain their new life as a sheltered person with a home.
Businesses, we touch upon attracting businesses to the city. What is the city doing to attract businesses? Any incentive, to make the city more friendly to business? Because it's very important to bring businesses. At the end of the day, most jobs will be created by individual businesses as opposed to government.
Right. Employment and the businesses that provide employment has been one of my priorities throughout my public life. When I was a member of the state legislature, I was the author of the first tax incentive for film production, to keep those film production jobs in Los Angeles, because
Not
we were
Canada,
losing
shipping them
exactly,
to
and we had lost. This is our signature issue. Industry. This is the industry that Los Angeles is known for around the world, and we were losing this industry and its good middle-class jobs to Canada, to many other states. We created a tax incentive, the first of its kind in California's history. Those jobs started coming back. So incentivizing business development is very important to me. That's why through the work that I've done on the Job Creation Committee, we've now focused a lot on small businesses. We've created a small business commission. We have essentially a business, we call it a business advancement team, which is essentially a business concierge to help a new business find its way through the labyrinth of City Hall. We've created business incentive zones in Los Angeles, and there are many other things that we're trying to do to cut the regulations, make it easier to do business, to make it easier for our city staff to get to yes for a business instead of always slamming the door and saying no.
We're going to take a very short break, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about Armenian issues.
Very
I want
good.
to talk more, unless you have more issues with the city. I think we'll talk about that, and then we'll go right back into the Armenian issues.
Very good.
Սիրելի պայգամներ, գարշ տատարեմի հետ պիտի վերադառնանք բալոն Փոլ Կրկորյանի հետ խոսելու մեր քաղաքի մասին. Thank you. Սիրելի պայգամներ, ինչպես ասինք, մեր այսօրվա հյուրն է բալոն Փոլ Կրկորյանը, Los Angeles City Council-ն, եւ գխոսենք Los Angeles քաղաքի հարցերու մասին. Paul, just before our break, we talked about the city issues, unless you have other things you'd like to discuss. One thing I forgot to mention to you or ask you is the immigration issue. I know with all the national news on illegal immigrants and so forth, what is the city's position on that, which is different than the federal government or what Trump is saying?
Well, Los Angeles, of course, is known throughout our country as being the home of immigrants from all over the world. My own family, your family. There are the largest population, the largest diasporan populations of about 30 or 40 countries in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is their second largest city after, their own country. So this is the fabric of our city. And I think it gives us the vitality that I think makes us a unique and special place. So we welcome immigrants from around the world. We give immigrants from around the world an opportunity to succeed in Los Angeles. And I think most people in Los Angeles feel that we don't want to scapegoat our immigrant families. We want to be a welcoming place, and we certainly don't want to be a place that discriminates against people based on their ethnicity or their religion or on any other factor.
I want to talk a little bit about politics and elections. I know in the last election we had good successes. Also, maybe a couple of our candidates did not win various offices. What is the reason behind it? Is it they're not well known? Krekorian was trying to run for city council. He came short. Ardi Kasakian came short. But yourself, Sarian, and others, they've been very successful. What is the difference between your candidacy, Nazarian's candidacy versus the others? Maybe it's a touchy subject, but
no,
I just want to discuss for our audience.
Sure. Every campaign and every candidate is unique. And I don't know if we can find a single thread to explain all of these different races. But I will say this. As I mentioned, when I ran the first time, I lost. When I ran in 2000, I lost that campaign. But there was an energy about that campaign. There were hundreds of volunteers, young Armenian American kids who were coming, volunteering their time, walking to the campaign headquarters from their high school. There was an excitement about it, in part because it was new. And the idea that it was Rafi Manoukian's campaign for city council in Glendale, and then right after that, my campaign for the assembly, this was a new thing that got people excited. And they realized we can actually have a voice in American government. I get concerned that members of our community have begun to take that for granted. And now, because we've had such tremendous success, my campaigns have registered over 10,000 Armenian American voters.
To vote.
Yeah, 10,000 new Armenian American voters in my campaigns. Other campaigns have even added to that. So we see the result. We see the result certainly in Glendale and in other places where there's great representation of Armenian American elected officials. I hope that our community never feels that that's just something that they can take for granted, that becomes passé. We should realize that we have to fight every single time, because we will always have people fighting against us every single time. And if we take these races for granted, we won't win. The other thing is, any successful candidate of any background has to reach out across
different
differences.
Groups, of course.
I don't think there's any place really that someone can be just an Armenian American candidate and get elected just with the support of the Armenian American community. You have to reach out and be a representative of all the people. And I think we saw, for example, you mentioned Krekorian's campaign for the city council. Although he did not win that race, he had actually great success in reaching out beyond our community and getting support from all sorts of different people across every ethnicity and income group.
That's because he was so disappointed that
yeah.
He did a really good campaign.
He really did.
Met him as a great man, great family, and I wanted him to win.
I was very proud of him. But again, when we have, in any city election, maybe there's 10 or 12 or 15% of the people show up to vote, which is shameful in American democracy.
Right.
It is shameful that in this country, the beacon of hope for the rest of the world, the model democracy for the rest of the world, a country that has fought wars to try to spread democracy around the world, and we only have 10 or 12% of the population showing up to vote. That's shameful. It's disgraceful. More often than not, the Armenian American community has shown up in larger numbers than
we as a community,
but we need to do
much higher
a better job.
Percentage
yes.
we go to votes.
Usually.
But also we need to register people to vote.
And that's right. And this has to continue every single election, not just when there's an Armenian American candidate, not just when it's somebody that's endorsed by your political party. In every single election, Armenian Americans, if they want to continue to have a voice, have to show up. They have to vote, they have to volunteer, they have to let elected officials know what we care about, what our issues are, what's important to us. If we don't show up, we will be ignored. And that's the risk that every group in American democracy faces.
Isn't tough to run nowadays for public office?
I'm not sure if it was ever easy.
It's not easy. I mean, you're going to sacrifice your family, and they're going to question you on everything. The pay is not that great, and it's difficult. I mean, especially in running for president or higher office. I mean, they question everything.
Yeah.
You have to release your taxes, except Trump. He doesn't release his return, so they're going to know everything about you. I mean, most people are not ready to go through that. Examination, so to speak, colonoscopy examination, I would say.
It feels that way, so.
Yeah.
Of course, it's difficult, and I'm tremendously grateful to my wife Tamar and my kids for the sacrifice that they make to allow me to do this, because they sacrifice a lot, and they're not in the public eye. They're not choosing to do this, but they have to make a sacrifice, and it's the same with the families of any other elected official. It is hard. I don't know that it should be easy, because if you want to serve your country, if you want to serve your community, you should be willing to fight for that opportunity. You should be willing to sacrifice for the ability to serve. Otherwise, you're not going to be a good elected official. That being said, though, there is an ugliness around the political process nationally now that is worse than it has been in the past. And I worry about that not only because it will discourage good people from running for office, but it discourages everyone from wanting to participate at all, voting, volunteering, spending their time in the public arena at all. The ugliness and the vitriol and the divisiveness of our politics, I think, is corroding our democracy, and that's something all Americans should be concerned about.
Candidates, unfortunately, use negative campaigns because that works. When you start attacking the other person, whether it's right or wrong, immediately in people's mind, oh, I saw this piece in my mail or on TV ad saying this guy is a crook, who's bad. I mean, that works, unfortunately. By the time you go try to explain yourself, the election is over.
And it works more effectively when voters are less involved. Because if voters are informed, if they are active, if they vote in every election, if they do their homework, the negative stuff won't work as much. Where the vulnerability is when voters have only a casual interest in a particular race. Like you say, they get their information from the glossy mail that they get in their mailbox. That's why it's effective. So I hope that people will make an extra effort to study candidates, all candidates, to do their homework, to read the newspapers and keep up to date in all public affairs. And if we do that, that sort of campaigning is less effective, and also the corrosive influence of money in politics becomes less important as well, right, because we have people power. We have people who show up and vote and understand what they're voting on.
But that's always amazes me, the amount of money spent on campaigns, even on local levels.
Yeah.
Millions.
Yeah, and that problem is getting worse. When you saw the school board races, for example, at LA Unified in the last election, it was disgraceful. I mean, millions of dollars spent for a school board seat. It's something we've never really seen before.
Yeah, and in my almost 40 years I lived in the city, I never saw anything like that. Okay. Anyway, we're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and for our last segment and we'll discuss some other issues.
Very good.
Սիրելի պայգամներ, գաշտատարեմերը պիտի վերաթարնանք մեր հարցին։ Սիրելի պայգամներ, մեր հյուրն է պարոն Փոլ Քրեկորյանը, City Council Los Angeles քաղաքից եւ գխոսենք մեր քաղաքի մասին։ Paul, just before the break we talked about politics and money in politics, and what is your position? I know, especially we talk about the school board election and how much amount was spent. And what do you think? I mean, that's something very strange to me, and I've been in the city a long time, and I never seen that type of amount, especially from outside groups, right, trying to influence the outcome of the elections.
Yeah, and that frustrates people who don't have hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to give in politics. But I think that's why it's that much more important that in our community, for example, or in any community, that people get involved, that you go and it should be incentive to people to make an extra effort to be engaged so that money doesn't become the only thing that decides outcomes. If people are involved and engaged citizens, if they show up and vote, if they volunteer to support the candidates that they care about, they can make a difference and push back against that corrosive influence of vast amounts of money.
What is your advice to young Armenian American, a lawyer, a doctor, wants to go into politics? What do you would tell them to do? Take
the leap. I think they should be prepared. This is not easy, as you pointed out earlier. This is not an easy life. It's not an easy career choice. And because we have had success as a community, which I'm very proud of, this community has done very well in the political arena in the last 15 years or so. Sometimes people think that, oh, well, it's easy for me to get elected because there's a lot of Armenians who live in my area. I'll just put my name on the ballot and I'll get elected. It's not as easy as that. So I would encourage them to get involved in the political organizations of our community, work with the ANC, work with the elected officials that are already representing our community, and that gives them a great pathway to consider realistically whether this is something that they want to do and whether they'll have the opportunity to get elected. But I really do encourage people to be involved in their government in some way, either as a candidate or supporting candidates or in some other area of government, because there's so much at stake for our community that we just have to have a voice in making the decisions that are going to matter to us as a community and for each of our individual families.
Relations between U.S. and Armenia. We have probably every Armenian in Armenia has a relative in U.S. So we're, as people, we're very close. But sometimes, and I know we're going beyond city of LA, but what do you think we should do as Armenians here in the United States trying to help our brothers and sisters in Armenia? And with Congress, with administration, I mean, there's more Armenians than Turks here. We still can't pass it through Congress. I mean, what should the community do?
Well, it's easy for our community to get frustrated sometimes, especially around genocide recognition,
right,
because we've pushed so hard for so long and still not gotten where we need to with the Congress. That being said, or with any of a succession of presidents, by the way, as well, of both parties. But that being said, it's important that people not get frustrated, because I think we've had tremendous success as a people. We're a pretty small community in the United States, and despite the small size of our community, people listen to our concerns in government. And at every level of government, I think if we speak up on behalf of Armenian issues, it can make a difference. In the City Council, I introduced a resolution to recognize the sovereignty of Artsakh and to make Shushi a friendship city with Los Angeles. Wow. Now, that's just symbolic. The city of Los Angeles, but following that, the California State Legislature also, then recognized Artsakh sovereignty. It becomes part of the public discussion, and it elevates the issue, I think, in the public's mind and in the mind of elected officials, which is very important because our adversaries are spending vast amounts of money to do the same in the opposite direction. Right. Azerbaijan is spending almost unlimited amounts of money in a PR campaign that we have to push back against. So we can do that at every level of government, and it's important that people never get so frustrated that they give up those fights, because in addition to genocide recognition, lives today depend on it. The lives of people on the front lines in Artsakh are depending on our continuing to support them and encourage them and to get the United States to move in a positive direction for peaceful resolution resulting in the independence and sovereignty of Artsakh.
We need to let them know they're not alone. Their brothers and sisters in the U.S. behind them. We support them. We're going to help them, and because if the minute they realize they cannot get our support and help,
that's right,
they're going to discourage there too.
That's why it was important to me, for example, as a council member in Los Angeles, to have I had President Sahakian come to council and be recognized as the president of a sovereign nation in front of the entire city council of Los Angeles. We had a reception for him. We've had the president of Armenia. We've had, both Catholicos come to city council. So by being involved, we elect people to represent our community, and I then become the vehicle by which the community is able to achieve things like that. And so do the other Armenian American elected officials. So that's why it's so important for people to stay involved so that we can produce those kinds of results. The ARS, for example, because of the work that I've done in the council, I've been able to ensure a positive partnership between the ARS and the City of Los Angeles, which has resulted in over $250,000 in funding to go to social services for Armenian Americans. Those are real tangible benefits that we get by having a seat at the table, by being involved. And if we're not at that table, someone else is going to be, and they're not going to be as concerned about our issues.
And talking to various congressional people in Congress, they always tell me, and I hear this constantly, well, we want to put the resolution, pass this thing, but the State Department says Turkey's an ally, we can't bypass that. How could we change that? Is it possible to change the opinion of the State Department, the administration?
I hope so.
That's a hopeless case.
No, I don't think it's hopeless. You were asking earlier about young people, young Armenian Americans wanting to get involved in government. One thing I encourage them to do whenever they'll listen is to go into the Foreign Service, because it's great to have elected officials, but I think having career Foreign Service professionals, diplomats, and people within the policy and research departments of the State Department, I think that's important as well, so that our voice is heard within that structure. I also think that a lot of this Turkish orientation that the State Department has long had is a byproduct of the Cold War. And we really needed Turkey when we had to have Jupiter missiles, aimed at Moscow. When we had to have that bulwark to protect against Soviet expansion southward. Russia is still a problem, but it's not the Cold War anymore. We don't have that same sort of geopolitical kind of concern, and Turkey doesn't have the same strategic geopolitical importance that it once did. And by the way, I think it's becoming more and more clear to America that Turkey does not represent our values. They have not proven to be our friend.
Almost dictatorial. It is a dictatorial country.
When we have needed their help, for example, in the fight against terrorism, they've been on the wrong side more often than they've been on the right side. When we've needed to use airspace to deal with issues in Afghanistan or otherwise, they've not been helpful to us. When we raise issues of concern to us, and the president of Turkey's bodyguards beat Armenians down in the nation,
19 of them were indicted
in our nation's capital, that tells me this is not a country that represents our values and is our friend. And you're right, they were indicted. I hope that they will, spend some time in an American prison, because I just don't understand how people in Washington can look at this country, and particularly under Erdogan, and see this as being anything but a pariah state, a state that's a dictatorship, that is contrary to our values, and frankly contrary to our national interests around the world.
But somehow the State Department, and to some extent the Defense Department, said, well, we need the space in Incirlik. Even the Germany withdrew all its troops, send it to Jordan, but somehow strategically that gets into the consideration. And always I keep hearing back saying, well, they don't want us to pass the genocide resolution because there's going to be consequences with Turkey. Somehow they get that passed.
And what I tell my friends in Congress, yes, it frustrates all of us. And what I tell my friends in Congress about that is, stop being so afraid. Look at, did Germany suffer, terrible repercussions? Did France? Did any other country in NATO who's done this? Did NATO itself? No. So why are we so fearful of this tin horn dictatorship that we let them dictate American policy to us? I don't understand it, and I think any member of Congress worth their salt should stand up to them and say, you don't decide American interests, I do.
Well, thank you, Paul.
Well, it's a great pleasure. Good to be with you.
It was a real pleasure. Սեր պայգամներ փակենք մեր հայդակիրը, շնորհակալություն կուզեմ հայտնել պարոն Պոլ Կիրկորյանին, City Council, իսկապես մեր հբարտ հայն է, Ամերիկահայ, որ մեզի կներկայացնե Los Angeles քաղաքի մեջ. We're really honored to have Mr. Paul Krekorian, who makes us all proud to be our representative in the City Council. Thank you.
Հաղորդման հովանավոր Dignity Health Glendale Memorial Hospital